The grand nexus hung in the darkness of space like a jewel made of metal and light. It was the largest station ever built in the known galaxy. Thousands of ships came and went from its docking bays every hour. Inside its massive halls, representatives from 300 different alien species conducted the business of governing half the galaxy. The Galactic Concordat had ruled for 10,000 years, and its council believed nothing could challenge their power. Today, the council chamber was more crowded than usual. Every seat was filled. The circular room stretched 200 meters across, with balconies rising in tiers around the central speaking floor. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing data, star maps, and the faces of representatives who attended remotely. The air hummed with 100 different languages being translated in real time. Council Speaker Verath stood at the center of it all. He was Vetharai, a species that looked like walking crystals that caught and refracted light. His body shimmered with colors that showed his emotions to those who knew how to read them. Right now, those colors showed confidence and superiority. He raised one crystalline hand, and the chamber fell silent. "We gather today to address a problem that has grown too large to ignore," Verath announced. His voice was translated into every language simultaneously. "The species called humans have refused our authority for the last time." A wave of agreement swept through the chamber. Clicks, chirps, growls, and sounds that human ears could never process filled the air. The representatives were angry. Humanity had insulted them. Admiral Thexkor of the Corvan Empire stood from his seat. The Corvans were a warrior race. They looked like huge reptiles that walked upright, covered in thick scales and natural armor plating. Thexkor was old. His scales darker than most, marked with scars from 100 battles. He had commanded fleets that conquered 20 star systems. Everyone respected his military knowledge. "The humans are children playing with weapons they barely understand," Thexkor said, his voice a deep rumble. "They have existed in space for less than 200 years. My family has served the Empire for longer than their entire civilization. Yet they dare to ignore our territorial boundaries. They dare to refuse tribute. They dare to speak to us as equals." More sounds of agreement echoed through the chamber. A representative from the eldest minds, beings of pure energy that existed in containment suits, spoke next. Their voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "We have observed humanity carefully," the eldest mind said. "They are aggressive, territorial. They expand without asking permission. They have colonized 47 worlds in their local space, and they show no signs of stopping. If we do not act now, Tom, they will continue to spread like a disease." Ambassador Chen sat in the human delegation box, a small area set aside for minor species. She was a woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her face showed no emotion as she listened to the aliens discuss her species like they were insects to be stepped on. Next to her sat two younger diplomats, both looking nervous. One of them, a man named James, leaned close to whisper, "Ambassador, should we say something? They are talking about military action." Chen shook her head slightly. "Let them talk. Let them show us exactly what they think of us." On the speaking floor, Verath activated a holographic display. It showed the Sol system, humanity's home. Earth appeared as a small blue dot, surrounded by orbital stations, defense platforms, and industrial facilities. It looked impressive by human standards. To the Galactic Council, it looked primitive. "As you can see, human military capability is limited," Verath explained. "They have approximately 300 warships, most of which are converted cargo vessels with weapons attached. Their largest ship is barely 400 meters long. By comparison, Admiral Thexkor's flagship is over 2 kilometers in length and carries enough firepower to crack a planet's crust." The hologram changed to show human weapons firing. Kinetic rounds, missiles, and primitive energy weapons flashed across the display. To the assembled aliens, it looked like children throwing rocks. They use chemical propulsion for many of their systems, a scientific advisor noted with amusement. They still rely on nuclear fusion for power generation. Their faster-than-light drives are crude and inefficient. By our estimates, they are at least 200 years behind the galactic standard in every category. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not the friendly kind. The kind that said these beings thought they were so far above humanity that the comparison was insulting. Thexcor stepped forward again. I propose we send a punitive fleet to the Sol system. Not to destroy them completely, that would be wasteful, but to teach them their place. We will destroy their outer colonies. We will cripple their industrial capacity. We will force them to bow before the Council and accept proper governance. How many ships do you recommend? Vareth asked. 300 warships should be sufficient, Thexcor said. More than enough to overwhelm their defenses. We will broadcast surrender demands. If they comply, we will install a council governor and monitoring stations. If they resist, we will bombard their military installations until they have no choice but to surrender. A vote was called. The holographic displays showed the tally as it came in. Green lights for yes. Red lights for no. The chamber filled with green. 300 civilizations voted to authorize military action against humanity. Only 7 abstained. None voted no. Ambassador Chen finally stood. Her 2 junior diplomats looked at her with wide eyes. Speaking now, after the vote, seemed pointless. But Chen walked calmly to the speaking floor. Vareth looked annoyed but allowed her to approach. The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth, Vareth announced with barely concealed contempt. Chen looked around the chamber slowly. She made eye contact with as many representatives as she could. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. For 5 years, I have stood in this chamber and asked for fair treatment. I have requested open trade negotiations. I have sought mutual defense agreements. I have offered to share our culture, our art, our music. Every time, you have dismissed us. You have called us primitive. You have laughed at our achievements. You have treated us like we are nothing. She paused, letting her words settle in the chamber. Today, you voted to attack our homes, to kill our people, to enslave our civilization under your rule. You believe this will be easy. You believe we cannot stop you. Vareth's colors shifted to show impatience. Is there a point to this speech, Ambassador? The vote is complete. The fleet will launch within the day. John St. Chen smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others did not. I am giving you one final warning, she said. You have no idea what you are waking up. You have no idea who we really are. You look at our ships and see primitive weapons. You look at our worlds and see weak defenses. You are making the greatest mistake in your civilization's history. The chamber erupted in laughter. Not polite chuckles. Full, mocking laughter. Some representatives actually stood to laugh more loudly. They could not believe the audacity of this human woman, representing a species barely out of its own solar system, threatening the Galactic Council. Thexcor's laugh was the loudest. His deep voice boomed across the chamber. Your threats are amusing, human. When my fleet reaches Earth, I will remember your words. Perhaps I will keep you alive just so you can witness your species learning humility. Chen's smile never wavered. I won't need to witness anything, Admiral. You will be the one learning. And you will remember this moment. You will remember that you were warned. Amen. She turned and walked back to her delegation box. James leaned close again. Ambassador, what do we do now? Now? Chen said quietly, sitting down and folding her hands in her lap. Now we watch. Now we wait. Now we let them discover exactly what happens when you threaten humanity's home. On the speaking floor, Vareth was already organizing the logistics. The 300 ships would gather at staging point Gamma, a neutral system 2 weeks' travel from Sol. From there, they would make the final jump into human space. Thexcor would command the operation personally. It would be a show of force that humanity would never forget. The representatives filed out of the chamber, already celebrating their victory. Some discussed what resources they would claim from human space after the conquest. Others talked about which human worlds would make good vacation destinations once they were properly civilized. All of them were confident. Only a few noticed that Ambassador Chen was still smiling as she left. In the human delegation office, a small room tucked away in a forgotten corner of the Grand Nexus, Chen sealed the door behind her staff. She walked to a secure communication terminal and entered a long encryption code. The screen flickered to life, showing the seal of the United Earth Space Command. Ambassador Chen, authentication confirmed. A voice said from the speaker. Execute Protocol Midnight Sun, Chen said calmly. They took the bait. The fleet is forming exactly as predicted. 300 ships, commanded by Admiral Thexcor of the Corvan Empire. They will stage at Gamma and then jump to Sol. There was a pause on the other end. Then, a woman's voice, cold and precise, responded. Confirmed, Ambassador. Admiral Vasquez sends her regards. The Ghost Fleet is in position. We will be ready to welcome our guests. Chen allowed herself a real smile now. Tell the Admiral to make it memorable. Let them see what happens when you underestimate humanity. Let them learn that we are not the prey they think we are. Message acknowledged. Earth. Command out. The screen went dark. Chen sat in the quiet office for a long moment. Her junior diplomats stared at her with confused expressions. They had no idea what Protocol Midnight Sun meant. They had never heard of the Ghost Fleet. They did not know the secrets that Earth had been keeping from the galaxy. What happens now, Ambassador? James finally asked. Chen stood and poured herself a drink from a small cabinet. Human whiskey, saved for special occasions. She raised the glass in a toast to the empty air. Now, James, we give them exactly what they asked for. They wanted to see humanity's true nature. They wanted to test our strength. They wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. She took a sip of the whiskey. Instead, we are going to teach them a lesson they will never forget. We are going to show them what 300 years of human warfare evolution looks like when applied to a galactic scale. Outside the office, the Grand Nexus continued its daily business. Ships came and went. Aliens conducted trade and politics. The great machine of galactic civilization turned as it always had, confident in its power and permanence. None of them knew that in the darkness between stars, 8 massive warships hung in perfect silence. Cloaked, waiting, watching. Each one larger than anything the Galactic Council had ever built. Each one carrying enough firepower to end civilizations. Each one crewed by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The trap was set. The prey was coming. And humanity was about to show the galaxy that they had drastically, fatally, underestimated who the real predators were. Admiral Thexcor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Time's dominant Fang Asterisk, and watched with satisfaction as the fleet assembled around him. 300 warships hung in the darkness of space at staging point Gamma, each one a masterpiece of Galactic Council engineering. Battle cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and support vessels formed a perfect military formation that stretched for thousands of kilometers. This was power. This was strength. This was what 10,000 years of galactic civilization could produce when it chose to enforce its will. Status report, Thexcor commanded. His tactical officer, a younger Corvan named Zexthar, consulted his displays. All ships report ready for jump, Admiral. Weapons charged. Shields at full strength. The fleet is formed and awaiting your command. Thexcor nodded. He had spent 3 days gathering this force, pulling ships from various council member fleets. The Corvans provided the heavy battlecruisers. The Vitharii contributed fast attack ships with advanced energy weapons. The Rexian Collective sent carriers full of fighter craft. Even some of the minor species had sent ships, eager to participate in what everyone believed would be an easy victory. Send the final jump calculations to all vessels, Thexcor ordered. We will emerge at the edge of the Sol system, exactly as planned. Humans will see us coming. They will have time to panic, time to realize resistance is futile. Only then will we broadcast surrender terms. Around the bridge, his crew worked efficiently. They had done this many times before. The Corvan Empire had conquered worlds for centuries before joining the Galactic Council. This was routine, but something nagged at Thexcor's mind. A small voice that whispered doubt. He remembered Ambassador Chen's face, her smile, her absolute confidence even as she stood before 300 civilizations that voted to crush her people. Warriors knew confidence when they saw it. Chen had not been bluffing or putting on a brave face. She had genuinely believed what she said. Thexcor shook his head, dismissing the thought. Humans were young, inexperienced. They knew nothing of real warfare on a galactic scale. Chen's confidence was just ignorance. She would learn. Admiral, we are receiving a priority message from Grand Nexus, his communications officer announced. Speaker Verath wishes to address you before the fleet jumps. A hologram materialized in front of Thexcor. Verath's crystalline form shimmered with colors of anticipation and eagerness. Admiral Thexcor, the Council wanted to wish you success in this mission. Make it quick. Make it decisive. Show these humans what happens when a primitive species defies galactic authority. It will be done, Speaker, Thexcor replied. Within 3 days, humanity will be kneeling before the Council. Excellent. Oh, and Admiral? Try to minimize casualties. They are more useful as laborers than corpses. Once they understand their place, they might contribute something valuable to galactic civilization. The hologram faded. Thexcor turned back to his displays. 3 days. That was generous. He expected the operation to take less than 1. All ships report ready, Admiral, Zexthar announced. Then let us end this farce. All ships, jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The stars twisted. Space folded. 300 warships disappeared from staging point Gamma and reappeared at the edge of the Sol system. 14 billion kilometers from Earth's sun. Immediately, sensors across the fleet began scanning. Thexcor watched the data populate his tactical display. There was Sol, the human's yellow star. There were the planets, small dots on the screen. Jupiter, Saturn, the gas giants, Mars, Earth's red neighbor. And there, the third planet from the sun, was Earth itself. Contacts, the sensor officer called out. Multiple defense platforms detected. Orbital installations around the outer planets. They are old designs, mostly automated. Any sign of their fleet? Thexcor asked. Negative, Admiral. We are detecting power signatures from various stations, but no large ship formations. Scanning deeper into the system now. This puzzled Thexcor. When an enemy fleet appeared at your doorstep, you responded with every available warship. You formed defensive positions. You prepared to fight. The humans were doing none of this. Perhaps they fled deeper into the system, Zexthar suggested, cowering behind their planet. Or perhaps they are surrendering without a fight, another officer offered. They see our numbers, and no resistance is impossible. Thexcor was not convinced. Something felt wrong, but he pushed the feeling aside and gave the next order. All ships, advance into the system. Combat speed. Target and destroy those defense platforms as we pass. Let humanity watch their defenses fall one by one. The fleet moved forward like a metal tide. The human defense platforms opened fire as the Council ships came into range. Missiles streaked through space, Kinetic rounds flashed, but the platforms were old, automated, predictable. The Council fleet's point defense systems swatted the attacks aside like insects. Energy beams lanced out from the Council ships. And one by one, the human platforms exploded in brilliant flashes of light. "Platforms destroyed, Admiral," the weapons officer reported. "No casualties to our fleet. Minimal shield impacts." The fleet continued deeper into the system. They passed Neptune's orbit, then Uranus, then Saturn. Still no sign of the human fleet. "This is too easy," Thexcor muttered. "Sir? Where are their ships? Even if they planned to surrender, they would position their fleet somewhere we could see it. Show some pride. This is wrong. Maybe their fleet is hiding behind one of the planets?" someone suggested. "Our sensors would detect them," the sensor officer said confidently. "We are using active scanning across the entire system. Nothing larger than a civilian transport is showing up." But something bothered the sensor officer too. He ran diagnostic checks on his equipment. Everything was working perfectly. Yet he had a strange feeling. Like something was watching them. Like eyes were on them from the darkness. "Continue scanning," Thexcor ordered. "Double-check everything. Humans may be primitive, but Ambassador Chen was too confident. She knew something. The fleet crossed Jupiter's orbit. They were now in the inner system, approaching Mars. Earth was just beyond. A journey of a few more hours at their current speed. Far above and below the ecliptic plane where planets orbited. In the cold darkness where no ships normally traveled, 8 massive objects hung in perfect silence. They had been there for weeks. Waiting, watching, recording every movement the Council fleet made. These were not civilian ships. They were not converted cargo haulers with weapons bolted on. These were purpose-built instruments of war, designed by a species that had spent 300 years perfecting the art of killing. The UESC Times Reckoning Times was the largest of them. She measured 2.8 kilometers from bow to stern. Her hull was not made of simple metals, but of composite materials that absorbed and deflected energy. Her skin was studded with hundreds of weapon ports, each one capable of firing rounds that could crack a moon. Her reactors produced enough power to supply a small city, and every watt of that power could be directed into weapons or shields, or engines that could accelerate the massive ship like a fighter craft. On the Times Reckoning's Times Bridge, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the tactical display with cold, calculating eyes. She was 52 years old, with short, dark hair going gray at the temples. Her uniform was spotless. Her posture was perfect. She had commanded ships for 30 years. And before that, she had been a fighter pilot. She knew space combat the way a musician knew their instrument. "The Council fleet has destroyed the automated platforms," her tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Commander Park was young but brilliant. He had graduated top of his class from the Mars Naval Academy. "They are proceeding toward Mars orbit exactly as predicted." "Of course they are," Vasquez said quietly. "They think this is already won. They see easy targets and assume that is all we have." Around her, the Times Reckoning's Times bridge crew worked in focused silence. These were professionals. Every one of them had trained for years for this moment. They knew the Council fleet outweighed them 300 to 8. They did not care. They had confidence in their ship, their training, and their commander. "Status of Ghost Fleet?" Vasquez asked. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Sarah Chen replied. She was the Admiral's executive officer, no relation to Ambassador Chen but just as competent. "Cloak fields holding at 100%. The Council fleet still shows no sign of detecting us. Every team. Good. How long until they reach the engagement zone?" 2 hours, 17 minutes at current speed, Admiral." Vasquez nodded. She had planned this operation down to the second. The engagement zone was a specific area of space around Mars, where the Ghost Fleet could decloak in perfect encirclement of the enemy, where every advantage would belong to humanity. She activated a communication channel that connected her to the other 7 dreadnought captains. Their faces appeared on her display. Captain Rodriguez, of the Times. Vengeance. Asterisk. Captain Okonkwo, of the Times. Defiant asterisk. Captain Tanaka, of the Times. Relentless asterisk. Captain O'Brien, of the Times. Indomitable asterisk. Captain Zhao, of the Times, Sovereign asterisk. Captain Al-Rahman of the Times, Unconquered asterisk. Captain De Leon of the Times, Retribution asterisk. 7 ships, 7 captains. Each one a veteran of dozens of operations. Each one ready to show the galaxy what human warfare really looked like. This is Admiral Vasquez. Final status check. 1 by 1, the captains reported. All systems green. All weapons ready. All crews at battle stations. Good. Vasquez said. You all know the plan. When I give the decloak order, you will have 0.3 seconds to acquire targets and fire. The Council fleet will be in disarray. They will panic. Use that panic. Hit them hard. Hit them fast. Show them no mercy until they surrender. And if they don't surrender, Admiral? Captain Rodriguez asked. Vasquez's expression hardened. Then we show them what happens when you threaten Earth. We send them a message written in fire and destruction that the galaxy will never forget. We make absolutely certain that no one ever makes the mistake of underestimating humanity again. The captains nodded. The communication ended. Vasquez turned back to her main display, watching the Council fleet advance like lambs to slaughter. Admiral, Lieutenant Park said hesitantly. Permission to speak freely? Granted. They outnumber us almost 40 to 1. Even with our technology advantage, those are terrible odds. Vasquez looked at the young officer. She understood his concern. On paper, this was suicide. 8 ships against 300. But Park did not understand what she understood. What every human military officer learned in their training. Lieutenant, let me tell you about humanity, Vasquez said. For thousands of years, we fought each other, nation against nation, army against army. We developed weapons that could end all life on our planet. We built strategies and tactics refined across centuries of brutal warfare. We learned how to win against overwhelming odds because our survival depended on it. She gestured to the display showing the Council fleet. Those ships out there? They were built by civilizations that have been at peace for centuries. They fight minor skirmishes and police actions. They follow doctrine that has not changed in 1,000 years. They have forgotten what real war looks like. Vasquez's smile was cold and predatory. We never forgot. We took everything we learned from human history, every battle, every strategy, every hard lesson purchased with blood, and we applied it to space warfare. These ships are not just technology. They are weapons wielded by a species that has never stopped being warriors. Today, the galaxy learns what that means. Park nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Now, Vasquez said, turning back to her display. Let us show them. All ships, maintain cloak. Wait for my signal. When we decloak, we give them exactly 5 seconds to realize they made a terrible mistake. Then we introduce the Galactic Council to human warfare. The Times. Reckoning Times and her sister ships hung in the darkness, invisible and waiting. Their reactors hummed with barely restrained power. Their weapons were charged and ready. Their crews were focused and determined. The Council fleet continued forward, unaware that they were not hunters approaching prey. They were prey being herded into a trap by apex predators they never saw coming. Admiral Thexkor stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching Mars grow larger on the main view screen. The red planet hung in space like a giant rust-colored sphere. He could see human colonies dotted across its surface, domed cities where thousands of humans lived. Soon those cities would receive council governors. The humans would learn to serve their betters. Sir, we have reached optimal position, Zexthar reported. Mars orbit achieved. All ships are in formation. We are ready to broadcast the surrender demand. Thexcor nodded with satisfaction. The fleet had arranged itself in a victory formation around Mars. It was a traditional council display of power. Ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns that demonstrated military precision and overwhelming force. From the surface of Mars, humans would look up and see 300 warships surrounding their planet. They would know. Resistance was futile. Open a channel to Earth, Thexcor commanded. All frequencies. I want every human with a radio to hear this. The communications officer worked his console. Channel open, Admiral. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Thexcor drew himself up to his full height. This was a moment he would remember forever. The day humanity learned humility. People of Earth, this is Admiral Thexcor of the Corvan Empire, commanding the Galactic Council fleet. Your civilization has defied Council authority for the last time. Your refusal to accept galactic law ends today. You are surrounded. You are outmatched. You are defeated. He paused, letting his words sink in across 13 planets and hundreds of orbital stations. I am authorized to offer terms of surrender. Power down your military installations. Recall your ships to Earth orbit and disarm them. Prepare to receive Council governors who will guide your species toward proper civilization. If you comply immediately, casualties will be minimal. If you resist, every alarm on the Time's dominant Fang Times screamed at once. Thexcor's head snapped to his sensor display. His tactical officer was staring at his screen with wide eyes, full of shock and disbelief. Contacts, the sensor officer shouted. Multiple massive contacts. They are appearing all around us. What? Where? Thexcor demanded. Everywhere, sir. Above us, below us, on all sides. They just appeared from nowhere. 8 massive signatures. On the view screen, space itself seemed to shimmer and tear. Reality twisted. And then, they were there. 8 ships. Each one enormous. Each one bristling with weapons. Each one painted in the dark gray and blue colors of the United Earth Space Command. They had materialized in a perfect sphere around the Council fleet, encircling the 300 ships like a cage. The largest ship hung directly above the Time's dominant Fang asterisk, close enough that Thexcor could see details on its hull. He stared up at it with dawning horror. It dwarfed his flagship. The Time's dominant Fang Times was 2 kilometers long, and he had always thought it was massive. This human ship was nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern and twice as wide. Its hull was covered in angular plates that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Weapon ports dotted its surface like the eyes of a spider. Along its side, in letters 5 meters tall, was painted its name. Shields up. All weapons. Target those ships, Thexcor roared. But even as his crew scrambled to respond, a voice cut across every communication channel in the Council fleet. A human voice. Female. Cold as the void of space. Council fleet. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Command. You came to our home. You threatened our people. You believed we were weak. Thexcor watched his tactical display light up with targeting solutions. His ships were trying to lock weapons onto the human dreadnoughts. But the human ships were moving. Despite their enormous size, they maneuvered like fighters. They shifted position with impossible agility, placing themselves in overlapping fields of fire that covered every angle of approach. You made assumptions based on what you could see, Vasquez continued. You looked at our civilian fleet and thought that was all we had. You underestimated us. That was your first mistake. Coming here was your second. Open fire, Thexcor commanded. All ships, fire at will. 300 warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked from launch tubes. Plasma bolts flashed across the darkness. The amount of firepower directed at the 8 human ships would have been enough to glass a planet. The human shields lit up like small suns as the barrage struck them. Colors rippled across invisible barriers as energy was absorbed and dispersed. For a moment, Thexkor felt hope. No shields could withstand that much firepower. Then the light faded. The human shields held. All 8 ships were undamaged. Impossible, Zexthar whispered. Your weapons are impressive, Vasquez's voice said. There was almost amusement in her tone. By your standards, allow me to show you what human weapons look like. The Times Reckoning Times fired. Railguns mounted along its spine unleashed a barrage of solid projectiles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. These were not the slow kinetic rounds the Council had seen from human defense platforms. These were penetrator rounds made of tungsten and depleted uranium, each one massing several tons, moving so fast they turned space hot around them. They struck a Vitharii attack cruiser that had positioned itself in front of the Times Reckoning Asterisk. The cruiser's shields flared and collapsed in milliseconds. The rounds punched through the hull like it was paper. They went in one side and out the other, leaving glowing holes 5 meters wide. Secondary explosions rippled along the cruiser's length. Its power core went critical. The ship exploded in a flash of light that briefly rivaled Mars itself. Then all 8 human dreadnoughts opened fire. The Ghost Fleet had been designed for one purpose: to win battles against numerically superior forces through overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. Every lesson humanity had learned from centuries of warfare had been poured into these ships. The Times Vengeance Times fired its plasma lance weapons. Streams of superheated matter, contained in magnetic bottles and accelerated to incredible velocities, reached out and touched 3 Council destroyers. Their shields lasted less than a second. The plasma burned through hulls, vaporizing armor, melting bulkheads, cooking everything inside. The Times, Defiant Times, launched quantum torpedoes. These were weapons that used principles of quantum mechanics that the Council did not fully understand. When they struck, they did not just explode. They caused localized disruptions in the strong nuclear force that held matter together. A Rexian carrier took a direct hit. Half the ship simply ceased to exist at the atomic level, converting to energy in a blast that consumed the other half. The Times, Relentless Times, brought its heavy ion cannons to bear. Streams of charged particles, invisible to the naked eye, reached across space at near light speed. They did not care about shields or armor. They penetrated everything and induced catastrophic electrical failures in ship systems. 4 Council vessels went dark as every electrical system aboard them fried simultaneously. The battle that the Galactic Council expected to be a simple police action had turned into a slaughter. Evasive maneuvers, Thexkor shouted. Scatter the fleet! Don't cluster together! But scattering was exactly what the humans wanted. The Ghost Fleet had positioned themselves to create overlapping kill zones. No matter where the Council ships fled, they entered the firing arc of at least 2 human dreadnoughts. The Times Unconquered Times demonstrated why it had earned that name. It took fire from 20 Council ships simultaneously. Its shields flickered, but held. Then, it returned fire with weapons called mass drivers. These launched projectiles not much larger than a human fist, but they launched them by the thousands, creating clouds of hypersonic shrapnel that shredded anything in their path. 6 ships that had been firing on the Times Unconquered Times were torn apart in seconds. Thexkor watched his tactical display with horror. In less than 5 minutes, he had lost over 40 ships. 40 ships. And the humans had not lost a single vessel. Their shields were holding against everything the Council threw at them. Sir, we need to retreat, Zexthar said urgently. We cannot win this battle. We outnumber them, Thexkor roared. 300 ships against 8. We have to. The Times Dominant Fang Times shook violently. Alarms blared. The main lights went out, replaced by emergency red lighting. We have been hit, someone shouted. Multiple impacts, shields at 40%. Thexkor looked up at the view screen. The Times, Reckoning Times, loomed there, its weapon ports glowing with deadly light. As he watched, Another barrage of railgun rounds streaked out. His ship rocked again. He grabbed onto his command chair to avoid being thrown to the deck. Shields at 15%. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We have casualties. This was impossible. This could not be happening. The Corvan Empire had conquered worlds. He had commanded victorious fleets for decades. How were these humans, these children barely out of their home system, destroying his forces? Another Council battlecruiser exploded. Then, two more. The human ships moved through the battle space like predators among prey. They chose targets methodically. They did not waste shots. Every time they fired, Council ships died. All ships, form up on my position. Thexcor commanded. Concentrate fire on the nearest human vessel. If we focus our firepower, Admiral, the times sovereign path times is gone, and the times eternal might asterisk. And the times glorious dawn asterisk. 3 more capital ships. Gone. Just like that. The times reckoning times moved closer to the times dominant fang asterisk. Vasquez's voice came over the comm again. Admiral Thexcor, I am going to give you a choice. Surrender now. And I will allow your surviving ships to leave. Continue fighting. And I will destroy every single vessel in your fleet. You have 10 seconds to decide. Thexcor's claws dug into his command chair. Surrender? To humans? The shame would be unbearable. He would rather die. But he looked at his tactical display. 74 ships destroyed. 74 ships in less than 15 minutes. His fleet was not fighting a battle. It was being systematically exterminated. He thought of his crew. Thousands of Corvans aboard this ship alone. Tens of thousands across the fleet. They were warriors, yes. But this was not a fair fight. This was execution. Admiral, we have incoming, the sensor officer screamed. The times, reckoning times, is firing again. The main railgun rounds struck the times, dominant fang times, directly in the engine section. The shields, already weakened, collapsed entirely. The rounds punched through the hull and into the main reactor containment. Alarms wailed as the reactor began an emergency shutdown to prevent a core breach. We have lost primary power. Engines offline. Weapons offline. We are dead in space. Thexcor felt his pride crumble. He was beaten. Completely, utterly beaten. By a species he had thought was primitive. Signal the fleet, he said quietly. Cease fire. We surrender. Zexthar stared at him. Sir? Do it, Thexcor roared. Signal our surrender before she kills everyone. The message went out across all council frequencies. The word that no Corvan admiral had spoken in 300 years. Surrender. One by one, the remaining council ships powered down their weapons. They sat in space, surrounded by debris and bodies and the shattered remains of over 100 warships. The human dreadnoughts held their fire but maintained targeting locks on every surviving vessel. Vasquez's voice came across the comm one more time. Cease fire. All human ships, maintain targeting solutions but hold fire. The shooting stopped. The sudden silence was deafening. Atmosphere vented from breached hulls. Emergency beacons wailed from escape pods. Council fleet, you will remain in position, Vasquez ordered. You will not move. You will not power up weapons. You will not attempt to flee. Any ship that tries to leave will be destroyed. Is that understood? Any ship. Understood, Thexcor said, his voice hollow. He looked at his bridge crew. They were staring at their displays in shock. They had left staging point Gamma confident and victorious. They would return home defeated and humiliated. If they returned home at all, on the bridge of the times, reckoning asterisk. Admiral Vasquez allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. The battle had gone exactly as planned. The Council fleet had reacted predictably. The humans had demonstrated overwhelming superiority. Damage report, she ordered. Asterisk Vengeance Times reports minor shield damage, already regenerating. All other ships report no significant damage. We are at 95% combat effectiveness across the fleet, Admiral. Vasquez nodded. 8 ships had faced 300. They had destroyed or disabled 112 enemy vessels. The remaining ships had surrendered. And the Ghost Fleet had barely been scratched. Send a message to Earth Command, Vasquez said. Inform them that the Council fleet has been neutralized. Sol system is secure. Message sent, Admiral. Vasquez looked at the view screen. At the broken Council fleet drifting in space. This was just the beginning. Now came the hard part. Now humanity had to show the galaxy that this was not luck or surprise. This was what happened when you threatened human worlds. Prepare to receive prisoners, she ordered. And someone bring me Admiral Thex Kor. I think it is time he learned exactly what the humans he tried to conquer are really capable of. The shuttle carrying Admiral Thex Kor approached the UESC Times, reckoning times with 2 human fighter escorts flanking it on both sides. Through the viewport, Thex Kor could see the massive dreadnought growing larger. Up close, it was even more intimidating than it had been during the battle. Every surface was functional and purposeful. No decorative elements. No wasted space. This was a machine, built for war, by a species that understood war. The shuttle entered a hangar bay that could have fit the Time's dominant Fang Times inside it with room to spare. As they landed, Thex Kor saw rows of human fighters, dropships, and small attack craft. There were hundreds of them. An entire air force contained within this one ship. Admiral, we have landed, the pilot said quietly. Thex Kor stood on shaking legs. He was not afraid of death. Korvans were warriors. But he was afraid of shame. He had led 300 ships against 8. And been destroyed. The story would be told for generations. His name would be synonymous with failure. The shuttle door opened. A squad of human Marines stood outside in full combat armor. The armor made them look bigger than they were. But Thex Kor could see through the helmet visors. Young faces. Determined eyes. These were not the primitive warriors the Council had expected. Admiral Thex Kor, the squad leader said. Please come with us. Admiral Vasquez is waiting. They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Thex Kor noticed everything. The walls were lined with conduits and access panels. But everything was organized and efficient. Crew members passed them without a second glance. Some were humans. Others were different species that Thex Kor recognized. He saw a Zenthari engineer, a species that usually worked for the Council. He saw a Hickson technician. They wore human uniforms and worked alongside human crew as equals. You allow aliens on your warships? Thex Kor asked. The Marine leader glanced back. Anyone who wants to serve humanity is welcome. We judge people by their actions, not their species. Some of our best officers are not human. This surprised Thex Kor. The Council kept species separated in their fleets. Each race commanded their own ships. The idea of mixed crews was unusual, but as he watched the crew work, he saw efficiency that matched or exceeded anything in the Council fleet. They reached a large door marked Admiral's Conference Room. The door slid open, and Thex Kor was led inside. The room was dominated by a large table with chairs around it. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing tactical readouts, ship positions, and casualty reports. At the head of the table sat Admiral Elena Vasquez. She was smaller than Thex Kor expected. Humans were not large creatures compared to Korvans, but the way she looked at him made him feel like he was facing something far more dangerous than physical size could measure. Admiral Thex Kor, Vasquez said, gesturing to a chair. Please sit. Thex Kor sat awkwardly. The human chair was not designed for his body shape. Vasquez watched him with eyes that missed nothing. Do you know why I asked you here? Vasquez asked. To gloat over your victory? Thex Kor said bitterly. No. Vasquez said calmly. To show you something. To make you understand something. Then, you are going to take that understanding back to the Galactic Council. She activated a holographic display. It showed the battle they had just fought, but from a different perspective. Sensor recordings from the human ships. Thexkor watched himself issue orders. He watched his fleet move into position around Mars. He watched them fall into the trap so perfectly that it seemed choreographed. "We knew you were coming," Vasquez said. "We knew when you would arrive, how many ships you would bring, and where you would position yourself. We have been monitoring Council communications for years. Your encryption is adequate against other Council species. It is pathetic against human intelligence services." Thexkor felt his scales prickle with embarrassment. They had been watched. The whole operation had been transparent to the humans. Vasquez changed the display. Now it showed construction yards. Massive facilities in space where ships were being built. Thousands of workers and construction drones assembled hull plates and installed weapons. Thexkor saw dozens of dreadnoughts in various stages of completion. "What you fought today was not our military," Vasquez said. "It was our defense fleet. 8 ships assigned to protect the Sol system. We have 40 more dreadnoughts deployed across human space. We have 100 more under construction. And we have shipyards that can produce them faster than you can destroy them." She changed the display again. This time it showed what looked like a massive ring structure being built in deep space. "This is Shipyard Omega. When it is complete in 2 years, it will be capable of producing 5 dreadnoughts simultaneously. We are building 3 more facilities like it." Thexkor stared at the images. This was impossible. The Council had intelligence reports on human military capability. Nothing had suggested this level of production or technology. "How?" he asked. "How did you hide all of this?" Vasquez smiled coldly. "Because we wanted to. Because while your Council was busy being arrogant, we were busy preparing. We knew the galaxy would not accept us as equals. So we decided not to ask for acceptance. We decided to take it." She stood and walked to a large viewport that looked out into space. The debris field from the battle was still visible. A graveyard of Council ships. "You want to know what humans are, Admiral? We are survivors. For millions of years, we evolved on a planet that tried to kill us. Predators hunted us. Diseases infected us. We fought each other in wars that killed millions. And we learned. Every generation learned from the last. We developed weapons. We developed strategies. We became the apex predators of our world." Vasquez turned to face him. "Then we went into space. And we met you. The Galactic Council. Hundreds of species that have known peace for centuries. Species that forgot what real warfare looks like. You thought we were primitive because our ships looked old. You thought we were weak because we did not have your energy weapons. You made the fatal mistake of judging us by your standards, instead of understanding us on our terms." She activated another display. This one showed Earth itself. The blue planet, hanging in space. Every human child studies military history. We teach them about ancient battles, about tactics and strategies developed thousands of years ago. We teach them about the mistakes civilizations made when they became complacent. We teach them that the price of peace is constant vigilance and overwhelming force. The display changed to show human military academies. Young officers training in simulators. Ground forces practicing combat. Pilots flying fighters through complicated maneuvers. While your species was at peace, we were training. While your fleets were doing police actions against pirates, we were developing weapons designed to fight wars against peer competitors. We took everything we learned from human history and applied it to space warfare. The result is what you saw today." Thexkor felt something cold settle in his gut. He was beginning to understand. The humans were not lucky. They were not surprisingly advanced. They were a warrior species that had been preparing for this exact scenario for centuries. "You cannot defeat the entire galaxy," Thexkor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Vasquez laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. The entire galaxy will not unite against us. The Council is not a unified entity. It is hundreds of species with competing interests, held together by tradition and fear of change. Half of them hate each other. The only thing keeping them together is the belief that the current system works. She walked back to the table and placed both hands on it, leaning forward to stare directly into Thexcor's eyes. We are going to break that belief. You are going to help us. I will not betray the Council, Thexcor said with as much dignity as he could manage. You already have, Vasquez said. By losing. By coming here, with 300 ships, and limping home with fewer than 200. By demonstrating to every species in the galaxy that the Council is not invincible. That humans can defeat you. She straightened and crossed her arms. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to return to the Council. You are going to tell them exactly what happened here. You are going to show them recordings of this battle. You are going to explain in detail how 8 human ships destroyed over 100 Council vessels. And then, you are going to deliver our message. What message? Thexcor asked. Vasquez activated one final holographic display. It showed a star map with hundreds of systems marked in human blue. Humanity claims sovereignty over these systems. Any Council vessel that enters them without permission will be destroyed. Any Council facility within 50 light-years of human space will be dismantled. Any species that wishes to trade with us will do so on equal terms, not as our masters. The map expanded, showing more systems. These systems contain minor species currently under Council control. We are offering them protection under the Terran Accord. If they choose to accept, they will become our allies and partners. Any Council attack on them will be considered an attack on humanity. Thexcor looked at the map with growing horror. Humanity was not just defending themselves. They were building an empire. They were directly challenging Council authority over dozens of systems. The Council will never accept this, he said. Then the Council will be destroyed. Vasquez replied simply. We have identified every major military installation, every shipyard, and every Council homeworld. If you choose war, we will strike all of them simultaneously. Your capitals will burn. Your fleets will be scattered. Your civilization will collapse. She leaned close again. Or you can choose peace. You can accept humanity as an equal power. You can negotiate treaties that respect our sovereignty. You can adapt to the new reality that the galaxy has a new apex predator. Thexcor felt his world crumbling. Everything he had believed about the Galactic Order was wrong. The Council was not supreme. Humanity was not weak. The future was not what he had imagined. Why are you telling me all this? He asked quietly. Why show me your strength? Because we don't want to fight the entire galaxy, Vasquez said, and for the first time, her voice softened slightly. We would win. But the cost would be high for everyone. Billions would die. Civilizations would fall. We are offering a better path. Cooperation instead of domination. Trade instead of tribute. Mutual respect instead of forced submission. She walked to the door, and it slid open. You have 3 days to repair your ships and treat your wounded. Then you will leave Sol System and return to the Council. You will tell them everything you have seen here. You will deliver our terms, and you will make them understand that the age of Council supremacy is over. Thexcor stood slowly. His legs felt weak. His mind was reeling with everything he had learned. And if the Council refuses? He asked. Vasquez's expression turned cold again. Hard. Dangerous. Then we will show them that the 8 ships you fought today were just the warning. The real human war fleet numbers over 2,000 vessels. And Admiral, we don't lose. 2 Marines appeared to escort Thexcor back to his shuttle. As he walked through the corridors of the Times, reckoning Asterisk, he saw more of the human crew. Engineers maintaining weapons systems. Doctors treating wounded from his own fleet. Soldiers training in a gymnasium. Every face showed determination and confidence. These were not the primitive species the Council had thought they were. These were warriors who had never stopped being warriors. A civilization that had prepared for this moment across centuries. Back in his shuttle, flying back to the time's dominant Fang asterisk, Thexcor stared out the viewport at the human dreadnoughts. They hung in space like patient predators, waiting, watching, ready. He thought about Ambassador Chen's warning. You have no idea what you are waking up. She had been right. They had awakened something the galaxy was not prepared for. They had underestimated humanity. And now everyone would pay the price for that mistake. As his shuttle approached the time's dominant Fang asterisk, Thexcor made a decision. He would deliver Vasquez's message. He would tell the Council everything. He would show them the recordings. And he would recommend they accept human terms. Because the alternative was extinction. And for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Thexcor of the Corvan Empire was truly afraid. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Mars. 6 months that changed the galaxy forever. The Grand Nexus was in chaos. The council chamber that had once been a symbol of unified galactic authority now looked more like a war room, where frightened species argued about survival. The holographic displays no longer showed tribute schedules and trade routes. They showed military deployments, defensive positions, and worst-case scenarios. Council Speaker Vareth stood at the center of the chamber, his crystalline body flickering with colors that showed stress and fear. Around him, representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded war. Some begged for peace. Some had already withdrawn their species from council authority entirely. Order! Vareth called out, his voice amplified across the chamber. We must have order. The shouting slowly died down. Vareth looked around at faces from 300 species. Fear showed on all of them, in different ways. The Vethari's colors were muted and dark. The Corvans stood with tense postures. Even the ancient eldest minds seemed disturbed, their energy patterns fluctuating irregularly. We have all seen the recordings, Vareth said. We have all heard Admiral Thexcor's report. We know what happened at Sol. The question now is, what do we do about it? Grand Admiral Kexthor of the Corvan Empire stood. He was the supreme military commander of all council forces, and his reputation had been built over a century of successful campaigns. But today, he looked old and tired. I have analyzed the battle data extensively, Kexthor said. I have consulted with our best tactical minds. The conclusion is unavoidable. If we engage humanity in direct military conflict, we will lose. Angry sounds erupted across the chamber. A Vethari war leader stood, his body blazing with red colors of fury. Unacceptable. We outnumber them thousands to 1. How can 8 ships defeat us? Because those 8 ships represent a level of military sophistication we do not possess, Kexthor replied bluntly. Human weapons are more advanced. Human shields are stronger. Human tactics are superior. They have been studying warfare for their entire existence, while we have been at peace. The technological gap is enormous. He activated a holographic display showing comparative data. Human weapons efficiency. Shield strength. Ship maneuverability. Every metric showed human superiority. But more importantly, Kexthor continued, they have been preparing for this exact scenario. They built their military in secret. They developed weapons specifically designed to counter our strengths. They trained for decades to fight us. While we thought they were primitive, they were becoming the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. Then we gather every ship from every member species, another representative suggested. We assemble a fleet of 10,000 vessels. They cannot stand against that. Minus. Alam, less minus. Less minus. Kexthor shook his head. According to intelligence we have gathered, humanity currently operates 47 dreadnoughts of the same class that attacked Admiral Thexcor. They have over 2,000 smaller capital ships. They have defense networks around every human world that would shred any attacking fleet. And they are building more ships faster than we can mobilize. He paused, letting that sink in. But the real problem is not their current fleet. The real problem is their production capacity. Human shipyards can produce warships at a rate that exceeds our entire military-industrial complex. If we went to war today, even if we won the first battle, they would replace their losses faster than we could. It would be a war of attrition that we would eventually lose. Silence fell over the chamber. This was not what they wanted to hear. But the data was undeniable. Then what do you propose? Varath asked quietly. We accept their terms, Kexthor said. We recognize human sovereignty over their claimed systems. We establish formal diplomatic relations. We negotiate trade agreements as equals, and we pray they are satisfied with that. Never, the Vathari war leader shouted. We do not negotiate with primitives. They are not primitives, a new voice said. Ambassador Chen walked onto the speaking floor. She had been given full diplomatic status after the battle, no longer relegated to the minor species box. They are the most advanced military civilization in the galaxy, and you made them that way. She looked around the chamber. You forced humanity to become what they are. You refused to treat us as equals. You demanded submission. You threatened our worlds. You gave us no choice but to prepare for war. And now you are shocked that we prepared well. You deceived us, Varath said accusingly. You hid your true capabilities. You never asked? Chen replied simply. You assumed. You made judgments based on what you wanted to believe, rather than what was true. That is not deception. That is your own arrogance blinding you. She activated her own holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with human space highlighted in blue. Surrounding it were dozens of systems marked in green. These are the minor species that have requested protection under the Terran Accord, Chen explained. Species that were tired of paying tribute to the Council. Species that wanted to develop their own civilizations without interference. In the 6 months since Mars, 43 species have joined the Accord. More request membership every week. The numbers were staggering. Nearly a sixth of all known spacefaring species had abandoned the Council for humanity's protection. You are stealing our subjects, a Council representative accused. We are offering them a choice, Chen corrected. Something the Council never did. Join us voluntarily as equals, or remain independent. We do not force anyone to submit. That is the difference between the Terran Accord and the Galactic Council. She changed the display to show human diplomatic outreach. Trade agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchanges, all conducted between equals. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy, Chen said. We want to be part of it. As peers, as partners, we offer protection to those who need it. We offer trade to those who want it. We offer friendship to those who seek it. What we will not accept is domination. Varath's colors shifted through complex patterns. Chen could not read all of them, but she recognized conflict and indecision. The Council cannot simply abandon its authority, Varath said. 10,000 years of tradition cannot be cast aside. Then adapt your traditions, Chen replied. The galaxy has changed. Humanity has changed it. You can either change with it or be left behind. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued. Some called for war despite the evidence that it would fail. Some called for isolation, withdrawing from contact with humanity entirely. Some, slowly, began to accept that the old order was dead, while the Council argued. Events in the galaxy moved forward without them. The Corvan Empire, humiliated by their defeat, attempted a revenge attack on a human colony world called Nova Terra. They sent 25 warships, including 3 of their most modern battlecruisers. It was meant to be a surgical strike. Hit the colony, destroy infrastructure, and retreat before human forces could respond. They did not know that the UESC times Defiant times was conducting patrol operations in a nearby system. Captain Okonkwo received the distress call from Nova Terra and immediately altered course. Her dreadnought crossed 3 light-years in less than an hour and arrived in the Nova Terra system just as the Corvan fleet began its bombardment. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The Times, Defiant Times, engaged all 25 Corvin ships simultaneously. Her weapons systems tracked and targeted every enemy vessel with precision that seemed impossible. She maneuvered through their formations like a dancer, always staying in positions where the Corvin ships blocked each other's firing solutions while she had clear shots at all of them. The engagement lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, all 25 Corvin ships were destroyed or disabled. The Times, Defiant Times, had sustained minor shield damage that regenerated within minutes. Nova Terra's population watched from the surface as a single human ship saved them from an entire fleet. The recording spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every species saw it. Every military analyst studied it. The message was clear. Even alone, human dreadnoughts were nearly invincible against conventional Council forces. The Corvin Empire formally withdrew from the Galactic Council 3 days later. They signed a non-aggression pact with humanity and requested to join the Terran Accord. The empire that had conquered 20 systems across centuries had been humbled in 6 months. Other species followed. Some because they feared human military might. Others because they were attracted to the Accord's promise of equality and voluntary association. The Council was hemorrhaging members. 2 months after Nova Terra, Ambassador Chen stood once again in the Council chamber. But this time, the atmosphere was different. The anger was gone. The arrogance was gone. What remained was resignation and pragmatic acceptance. The Galactic Council has deliberated, Vareth announced. His colors were muted and subdued. We have reached a decision regarding humanity's status. Chen stood calmly, showing no emotion. But inside, her heart raced. This was the moment that determined humanity's future in the galaxy. The Council formally recognizes the United Earth Space Command as a sovereign military power, Vareth continued. We recognize human territorial claims over the systems outlined in their proposal. We agree to establish formal diplomatic relations and negotiate trade agreements on equal terms. He paused, and his colors shifted to something that might have been shame. Furthermore, the Council acknowledges that our previous attempts to subjugate humanity were in error. We apologize for the loss of life and extend our respect to those who fell defending their homes. The chamber was silent. An apology from the Galactic Council was unprecedented. In 10,000 years, they had never acknowledged a mistake. Finally, Vareth said, the Council invites humanity to take a seat among us as a permanent member with full voting rights. No tribute will be required. No submission will be demanded. You will join us as equals. Chen allowed herself a small smile. This was more than humanity had dared to hope for 6 months ago. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I accept the Council's invitation. We look forward to a future of cooperation and mutual respect. She walked to the speaking floor and took her place at the Council table. Not in a minor species box. Not as a petitioner. As an equal. 1 month later, Council Speaker Varath traveled to Earth to personally sign the Treaty of Geneva. It was a symbolic gesture, the most powerful representative of galactic civilization coming to humanity's homeworld to formalize their new relationship. The ceremony took place in the same room where humans had signed treaties ending their own wars centuries ago. Varath found that appropriate. Humanity had brought their talent for warfare to the stars, but they also understood peace. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood beside Ambassador Chen during the ceremony. She wore her full dress uniform, medals covering her chest. Varath noticed that Vasquez never smiled. She watched everything with calculating eyes, even during this moment of celebration. You do not trust us, Varath observed quietly as the diplomatic staff prepared documents for signing. Trust is earned, Vasquez replied. Right now, we have mutual respect born from fear. You fear our weapons. We respect your civilization's age and knowledge. That is a foundation. Trust will take time. And if we betray that respect? Varath asked. Vasquez's expression hardened. Then you will discover that the ghost fleet you fought was our defensive force. Our offensive fleets are much, much larger. Vareth's colors rippled with something that might have been dark amusement. You, humans, are fascinating. You speak of peace, while reminding us you can destroy us. Is this how all human diplomacy works? Yes, Chen interjected. We learned a long time ago that peace only works when backed by strength. We want to be your friends, Speaker Vareth, but we will never again be anyone's subjects. The treaty was signed. Humanity officially became the newest permanent member of the Galactic Council. But everyone knew the truth. The Council was no longer the supreme authority it once was. Humanity had shattered that illusion. In the months that followed, the Terran Accord grew stronger. Dozens of species joined. New trade routes opened. Technology was shared. Culture was exchanged. The galaxy that had been static for millennia began to change and grow. But humanity never stopped building ships. 3 years after the Battle of Mars, the UESC fleet numbered over 3,000 dreadnoughts and 15,000 smaller vessels. Shipyard Omega was complete and producing 5 capital ships every month. 3 more facilities like it were under construction. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Times Reckoning Asterisk, watching new ships roll out of construction docks. Her hair was fully gray now. 3 years of constant vigilance had aged her, but her eyes were still sharp, and her mind was still tactical. Admiral, we are receiving diplomatic reports from the frontier, Commander Chen reported. She had been promoted and now served as the Times Reckoning's Times Executive Officer permanently. The hegemony of far stars is making aggressive moves toward Accord member systems. The hegemony? Vasquez considered this. They were a powerful faction that existed beyond Council space. They had watched humanity's rise with suspicion. Are they threatening military action? Not yet. But their rhetoric is becoming hostile. They see the Accord as a threat to their sphere of influence. Vasquez nodded slowly. This was inevitable. Humanity had disrupted the galactic order. Not everyone would accept that peacefully. Prepare deployment orders for the Second Fleet, Vasquez commanded. 20 dreadnoughts, plus support vessels. Send them to the frontier. Make sure the hegemony can see them. 1. A show of force, Admiral? A reminder, Vasquez corrected. A reminder that the galaxy has changed. That humanity protects its allies, and that anyone who threatens us will face the same fate as the Council fleet at Mars. She turned to look out the viewport at the growing human armada. We are not conquerors, Vasquez said quietly. We are not seeking an empire, but we are also not weak. We are not prey. We are apex predators who have learned to coexist peacefully with others. As long as others respect that, there will be peace. And if they don't? Chen asked. Vasquez's smile was cold and dangerous. The smile of a predator that knew it was the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Then we remind them why you should never, ever underestimate humanity. Far below, on Earth's surface, children looked up at the stars and dreamed of exploring them. They did not know about the battles their parents and grandparents had fought. They did not know about the terror the galaxy once felt at humanity's rise. They only knew that humanity was strong, that humanity was respected, that they could travel the stars without fear because human ships guarded every frontier. The age of Council supremacy was over. The age of human ascendancy had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the Council chambers on the Grand Nexus, species that once demanded tribute now negotiated as equals. The Galactic Council still existed, but its nature had fundamentally changed. It was no longer a tool of domination. It had become a forum for cooperation, and in the center of it all, Ambassador Chen sat at the council table, a human among aliens, representing a species that had gone from being dismissed as primitives to being feared as the most powerful military force in known space. She often thought about that day 6 months before the battle, when she warned the council they had no idea what they were waking up. She had been right. They woke up a sleeping giant. A species that had been preparing for this moment across its entire history. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be the apex predator, and the galaxy had learned to respect that. Because in the end, strength was the only universal language, and humanity spoke it fluently.